Welcome to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where we feature top leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry with your host, Drew Hendricks. Now, let's get started with the show.
Drew Thomas Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where I talk with leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry. Today's episode is sponsored by Barrels Ahead. At Barrels Ahead, we work with you to implement a one-of-a-kind marketing strategy, one that highlights your authenticity, tells your story, and connects you with your ideal customers. In short, we help wineries and craft beverage producers unlock their story to unleash their revenue. Go to barrelsahead.com today to learn more. Today we have Bianca Harmon on the show again. She's our D2C strategist. How's it going, Bianca?
Excuse me. Sorry. It's going good, Drew. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good too. I think the last show you were on was Jennifer Freeburn over at Wow and Flutter was her winery.
Yeah, singer, marketing specialist, wine brand owner as well. Kind of had it all.
Yeah, we did. We went into some deep discussion about kind of the parallels between singer-songwriting and like kind of actually developing a marketing story. So if you haven't checked out that episode, you want to go back and give it a listen. So today we have today's guest it's Andrew Januik. He's winemaker for Novelty Hill-Januik Winery and his own eponymous winery, Andrew Januik Wines. They're all located up in Washington State. And Andrew grew up in the wine industry and has witnessed firsthand the massive changes over the last few decades. Today, we're going to talk about these changes, along with all the projects that he's got going on in Washington, his new ventures in Argentina and Chile, along with his newly released For Good Hard Seltzer, where the proceeds go to support No Kids Hungry. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be on.
Thank you so much for being on. So, Andrew, I got to ask, you got a lot of things going. I usually ask how you got started in the wine industry. I'm just going to jump in. How do you juggle all this?
One of the ways you do it is just simple, just get down to work. It's, every day you just kind of tackle task after task and, having a number of different ventures going at the same time. It's the longer you do it, the more you learn to kind of implement your own organization tools. And a lot of it's just, taking the time throughout the day to just knock off your tasks and be willing to spend those extra hours at night, be willing to work on the weekends. And also, I know I'm lucky to have a great support system, both, friends and family that have always, supported in any kind of exterior tasks that need to get done.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Having that friends and family and actually growing up in the industry, you learned all the shortcuts and tricks, which kind of probably allows you to do more than the average person. What was it like growing up in the wine industry?
It was great. I mean, especially here in Washington, we are still, relatively a young, growing region. I mean, a lot has happened in the last 4 decades here. So it's fun it's a fun industry, I think, kind of no matter where you are, but especially as a burgeoning one, to really see the camaraderie that takes place where it's kind of, all boats are sinking and rising together. I mean, obviously it's, kind of that's a saying that gets thrown around a lot, but with a young industry, there is a lot of truth to that. So there's a lot of people working together, people sharing tricks, tips, vineyard sourcing. I mean, whatever it may be, resources. So, I mean, especially as a young, I really started working in wineries, at the age 12, 13. You see a lot of people that really care not just about their product, but about the community that it's part of. And that's really appealing.
Absolutely. So 12 or 13, so you're what, 35 now?
Yeah.
So over the last 23 years, what changes have you seen?
I've seen a lot. There's been a qualitatively, there's been a push forward, obviously, in the winemaking side. But it's been strong ever since I got in the industry. I mean, there's been probably even more so on the viticulture side, coming from Washington, where it's a lot of people from outside of Washington don't think of it as an agricultural state, but it really is. I mean, you get to the east side of the Cascade Mountains and it's a completely different landscape. I mean, it's a desert, but with strong irrigation, both from well systems and the river systems. So, it's not just vinifera, it's not just wine grapes, it's, apples, onions, alfalfa, wheat. I mean, basically anything you can think of grows really well here. Exactly. Those wall sweets. You can eat those things raw, no problem. They're incredible. So, a lot of it's been the transitioning from some of these other agricultural products to wine grapes. And, you talk to people who've been around since, the 70s, and, they're, just dumping as much water as possible on these vines, and, learning about, something as simple as, deficit irrigation. And so things have just really become much more nuanced in what we're doing. And you, especially with the way that the climate's changing, you just see that people have really dialed in to, get as much concentration out of the fruit as possible.
And a lot of that, so on the viticultural side, a lot of that, like I went to, back in the early 90s, I went to Gonzaga up in Spokane.
Oh, nice.
Driven the span between Seattle and Washington so many times, and down to Walla Walla. And there's just a lot of wheat fields. And I would say probably in driving today, the biggest change that I see is just the amount of actual vineyard area that you're now driving through versus just wheat fields.
Without a doubt. I mean, you've seen a lot of those wheat fields come up and planted, some orchards coming up, planted not quite as much, since, those are more of a heavier cash crop than wheat is. So, I mean, we really are lucky for how hot and dry it is to have as much access to water as we do, because, I've been able to work all over the world, and there's not many places with this type of weather and climate that can, basically irrigate whenever it's needed, which, it's one of those things that's kind of a less sexy part of the industry, but it's one of those things that if you don't have it, it doesn't really function,
So is the weather there similar? Like, it's not as rainy as like Portland and Seattle. I mean, is it similar to Napa, or?
It's actually significantly drier than Napa, and usually hotter. I mean, we're having a cool year here across the whole state, but yeah, during the summer in June, July, it's pretty reliably in the mid to high 90s. I mean, last year we had a number of days in Eastern Washington get up to 118, 117. So and most of the state over on that side, they're getting kind of that 4 to 8 inches of rain for lots of the state. So yeah, it's for people who haven't been to Eastern Washington and they think of Washington state weather as Seattle, like it's a real shock once they get to the other side of the mountains. Like, oh yeah, this
eye-opening
is it's a different world. Yeah,
it is. It's actually, so as I understand it, it's actually the northern end of the Sonoran Desert. So if you look at that swath that comes up, that'll extend all the way up into the Okanagan Valley, and it goes right through Walla Walla, or the whole Eastern Washington area. Is that true?
I'd have to actually go look at the maps of the geological maps of the Sonoran Desert to know for sure. But it's not one of the things that people talk about much with Washington. But
I always equated that with why there was just a little less rain, and you do get that heat. But now you're Novelty Hill, and you guys are located in the Benton Lane area, Red Mountain.
So we get a very large portion of our fruit from Red Mountain. So technically it's three different wineries.
Okay. Give us a rundown of the three.
So basically, one is a winery that I own. One is a family owned by, my family, the Januik family. And then also a winery, Novelty Hill, that is owned by the Alberg family, who a family that we've known for, the past couple decades, who are not, their background is not in winemaking. So we kind of run the day-to-day operations for them and do all the winemaking. And it's all in the same facility, and it's actually in Woodinville, Washington. So Woodinville is about half an hour or so outside of Seattle. I'm not sure what the number is now, probably somewhere between 150 to 200 tasting rooms and wineries. here in Woodinville. So it's kind of a unique setup where a chunk of the facilities are actually on the western part of the state, even though they're all getting grapes from the eastern part of the state. So essentially, they harvest, put them on temperature controlled trucks, the grapes, and truck them over the mountains and into Woodinville, and then all of it is processed here.
2 months ago, I was in Woodinville for the first time in 20 years. I could not believe how much it changed.
It's wild. It's wild.
That new facility. We were visiting some friends. We went to St. Michel and couldn't believe their tasting setup that they had set up. It reminded me almost of Vegas with the different little pots that they had there.
Yeah. There's a lot of different kind of tasting areas going on over there. So we're probably about 100 yards from them. So next time, let me know and we'll get you all set up.
I was a captive backseat passenger. They had planned this little event, and we went and did our tours. It was good though.
You seem to be a backseat person on a lot of your trips, Drew.
I am. I tend to just get in, take me somewhere.
That's the best way to do it. I wish that was every day of my life. Just
I don't want to
take me where you want me to go.
Put something in my hand and I'll drink it. Yeah. So talk to me about your venture. So you've got Novelty Hill. You're helping your friends, and then you got your family winery. And now talk to me about yours.
Yeah. So I started making wine separately. It's been a while now. So 2011 was the first brand that I launched separately in Washington State, and then I have started a number of different labels since then. And like I said, I started working in wineries when I was young. I started making wine of my own when I was in high school. So just for me, it was very young that I got kind of the bug for winemaking. And as when people who really on the production side, the winemaking side, I think that there oftentimes comes a point where it's like you love what you're doing, but it is a very personal kind of process and experience, and it's kind of a way of expressing yourself differently through your wines. You talked about a singer-songwriter before. It's there are obviously it's the functionality is different, but there is a lot of that I think you could probably put in parallel with each other. So I just kind of decided to, start something small on my own then. And it's just really grown out from that. And, every year it's tried to evolve my winemaking and evolve those brands.
Do you have a tasting room or?
What's that?
Do you have a tasting room or is it just, you do?
So it's a shared tasting room though. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, but in Woodinville in the same location. Yeah. That's Novelty Hill-Januik. Yeah. So we're all cozy together.
Well, that's good. Now, you're talking about your winemaking. How would you say your winemaking styles evolved over the years?
I think a lot of it has, as you get, everybody's evolves in a different way. I think as mine has become more and more focusing on, I don't want to say non-intervention because that's kind of a word that gets thrown around a lot, and nothing in winemaking is non-intervention. Grapes wouldn't be in these places with the non-intervention, but kind of letting the wines take the path of least resistance, and with whether it's something as simple as using non-commercial yeast or natural type yeasts, and letting the fermentations take the path that they want to more naturally. So it's a lot of kind of scientific, more idiosyncratic things like that. Finding aging methods that will be lower impact, and just trying to focus on letting the vineyards do most of the work, which is I think. Obviously, you want to have control over what's happening, but you do, as you get older, I think you kind of want to showcase those parcels of land more and more.
I think I see that as a common theme, throughout art industry, throughout art and science. like a parallel that I see also is Ansel Adams as a photographer. If you look at his early works, he was very, very over heavy-handed in the darkroom with his burning and coloring his pictures. And if you look at the way he processed his pictures 30 years later, they were much lighter, much brighter, more just of a true representation rather than an artistic rendition of the landscape. I kind of see that.
I love that comparison. I'm still totally stealing that.
Yeah, I do see that. So I'm glad. Yeah, it's not surprising that would be how he'd progress. In starting your in your winery, what sort of challenges did you face?
It's I think for myself growing up in the industry, having family in the industry, it's 80 to 90% advantage where it's, you have these built-in connections. You kind of have a built-in comfort level, one on the winemaking side, but also in, the marketing of its side, the branding, having those built-in relationships. But there is the challenge of, how do you then set yourself apart? Because there's a little, for the most part, people are, very supportive, but then there is the segment. It's like, all right, you gotta show extra because of this background. So there is some of that, but it's fun. If you're not up for the challenge, then you're probably kind of in the wrong industry because it is so competitive that you have to go in the mindset like I have to show everybody that what's happening here is legitimate.
Oh, for sure. And so I'm just going to jump without a segue. What brought you to Argentina and Chile?
I love the wines, and that was a big portion of it. But it was, spending time traveling ahead of time in South America. I'd spent quite a bit of time living in Spain, which is obviously not none of these are one for one, but you get some of, especially like southern Spain, you get some of the similar cultural experiences. And I love the language. I love the history down there. So eventually it was just taking the plunge, and obviously their harvesting season is opposite of ours, being in the southern hemisphere. So I just
sounds like a workaholic. I'm afraid to take.
I know
I got a season I can jump on.
I know it's.
So are you spending the off seasons down there?
Yeah,
you are. Okay.
So I've been going down the southern hemisphere. Yeah, for every year for I guess a little under a decade now. So at first, initially kind of in South America, mainly Argentina, then some time in South Africa. And then I started my own project in Argentina in 2017, and then in Chile a couple of years after that as well. First it was just collaborating with wineries, learning different techniques, learning about the terroir, how the grapes function there. Because even though you're working with a lot of the same varieties, all those different, elevation impacts, weather impacts, soil type, like all those things have such a dramatic effect that it is almost like you're working with different types of grapes.
How are the two countries different?
Between Chile and Argentina?
Yeah, like how, that must be different working between the two. Is it like the equivalent between like Washington and California, or is it like between like California?
I'd say it's more drastic. Working in Chile, a lot of it is, in some ways, it's definitely, of the two, it's much more similar to working in the United States. There's a little bit, not even necessarily because of the things really tangible like the weather or anything like that, but it's a little bit more regimented of what's happening. When you're picking all those things. Argentina is a little bit more laissez-faire, which is one of those things that you have to adjust to, because I talked about letting the wines do their own things, but sometimes it's like to a different extreme down there. So you have to reset your expectation and your mindset, and then once you do it, it's very fruitful, both like kind of mentally, but also in what's happening with the fruit. So Argentina, there's definitely more of a kind of everything's going to work. Let's let these things happen. And where Chile, it's a little bit more, kind of, we're picking this day, we're doing this boom, boom, boom. So that's a big part of it. Actual weather-wise, I mean, in Argentina, I'm sourcing fruit that's about 4,000 feet in the Andes. Oh, wow. And in Chile, it's, you're getting a much bigger impact from the sea. You're on the seaside of the Andes. So cooler, it's a different, more acid driven, lighter, really nice expressive wines. Argentina, even though you're that high up, which usually you think of cooler kind of mountain fruit, which you get that, but it is a really warm region. So you get nice concentration, really interesting, especially the Malbecs, the Cabernet Francs, but definitely kind of have more of a punch to them than lots of the Chilean wines.
You need to, one of my best friends, her brother actually several years ago moved out to Chile. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. And he started his own wine brand out there. And he's been out there now probably, I don't know, almost 8 years. His mom's actually getting ready to relocate out there because her granddaughter's there. And it's called Parker Wine Company.
Parker, okay.
When you're out there.
I will. I'll definitely will.
He's from St. Helena and has his own wine brand out there now.
That's awesome. That's the dream,
Yeah. So just check it out when you're there.
I will take you up. And that's the thing is in both the countries, that's great, is that it is, you see it like, I talk about Washington with the young industry. It's like they are the same, where they are all so connected with each other, where it's like everybody knows everybody. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a little noise in here. Are you guys good?
Okay. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a very, very tight knit communities, even though they're massive growing regions, obviously.
Right.
Well, like Chile, it spans so many latitudes, like from way north to way south. I mean, how are and I'm a little ignorant on this. How are the vineyards? Where are your vineyards located in that span?
So most of mine are kind of in the more central, kind of normal growing region, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Santiago. Mm-hmm. And that's where you see most of the production. It's kind of the most reliable place. Mm-hmm. Where you see some others up north in kind of more desert, like Pasco El Cuy, they have some. And then you see some down south, but you see a little bit more in Argentina, down in like Patagonia, where much, much cooler, very different growing region. And that's where you're seeing a lot more Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, things, kind of those types of varieties. Cool. But yeah, you're right. Chile is so skinny, and like it always surprises people the first time they go there, because it's really, land area wise, a small country, but it takes forever to get everywhere.
Yeah, I've watched a few movies and a lot of surf films on Chile. I had never been there. It's definitely on my list to go. Now, so are you importing the wines to the United States, to Washington? And what?
So it's called a Southern Sojourn.
Southern Sojourn? Sojourn,
yeah. So like the word sojourn, like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. And how are those being distributed?
So they are, I mean, a lot of it goes direct to consumer out of, tasting room, whatnot, online. And then they are distributed in a number of states. So like Washington, Oregon, Idaho, New York, Florida. So it's, it's kind of scattered around the country.
Are you considering or working with any international blends? Like bringing the juice up and doing a little hybrid, Washington, Chile, Argentina? So like
combine it. I've thought about it. Then it's one of those things where it's, how much of a headache is this going to be, and how is it actually going to turn out? I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I haven't been in my house, maybe after a few glasses of wine and started like playing around.
Do that every night
from the bottle. Yeah, it's like okay, well maybe I do like 30% of this Malbec from Argentina, a little bit of this Chilean Carmenere, some Washington State Cab. Yeah.
Don't all the best ideas happen when you have, just a little bit of alcohol in you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, a little or a lot. Yeah, definitely.
Usually mine's a lot when the best ideas. But the unfortunate part is then I don't remember them the next day. I'm like, I think I came up with a really great idea last night, but I don't remember it.
You're supposed to get on YouTube and broadcast that right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook Live it.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. No, I think we've all. I think some of my best blends though have been after a dinner party where I saw that there was still one full bottle if I combined them all.
Well, I mean, that's better than back in the day. My mom shared a story when she worked in the tasting room, and this was back when people actually like spit in buckets, and now people are just kind of like dump. So she said that after the end of her shift one day, there's a guy in there at the tasting bar, super hammered, and he's asking for more wine, like doesn't realize, turns around and picks up the spit canister. What? And starts drinking it.
You must have just watched Sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen the same thing one time also. And that was like
my mom was
15 years ago, and it sticks burned into my brain.
Yeah. My mom was like, I think the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And she's like, and there was nothing you could say. You just, okay, that just happened.
The person does't want to know. It's better to live in ignorance.
Yes.
Hopefully got where he needed to be.
Hey, it could have been the most incredible blend. Only he will know.
Yeah. Well.
Oh man. So wine aside, what prompted you to get into seltzer?
Oh man, random on a whim. So I guess now it was end of 2020, so a bit ago, almost a year and a half ago. My very, very good friend from growing up, Court, he called me up, and he basically was like thinking about doing something in addition to what he's already doing. And he's thinking about, maybe starting a brewery or something like that. And I told him, if you want to do that, I'll support you in the TTB and, getting all that together. But I love beer. I drink plenty of beer, but kind of everything that's been done in beer has been done. I'm sure somebody will obviously deny that and come back and surprise me with something new. But
as soon as you say that, this like new revolutionary type of beer is going to come out.
Good. And I
go to the
hope
grocery store and see something and be like, oh shoot.
Yeah. I can't wait to drink it. I just don't want to make it.
Yeah.
So he called me back a few days later. And he's like, what do you think about hard seltzer? And I basically told him, I don't think much about hard seltzer. I've had plenty of hard seltzers. Frankly, most of them are bad, and some of them are innocuous, and those are the usually better ones. Yeah, exactly. It's like, you hope it tastes like nothing, but most of them have the aspartame, fake chemically kind of aftertaste that like really, it's almost metallic that stays with you. Mm-hmm. But we started talking about it and just thinking about like the process and the fermentation behind it. It's like, well, there's not actually a reason that it can't taste better than what they all, or not all, but most of them are. And some of it was, excuse for, we live in different states, just kind of to catch up on the phone. And we fleshed it out. And so he works in commercial recycling, and he sees so much food waste. Like, it's shocking how much food waste. I believe the number is about 30% of the food in our country ends up in a landfill. So like, well, it'd be great if we could kind of support eliminating some of this, and kind of, some ideas like imperfect produce, where we're using cold fruit that's not pretty enough for a grocery store shelf, but it's a perfectly mature, ripened fruit, and it can go have some kind of a life other than just ending up in a landfill. Mm-hmm. But
an excellent motive.
Sorry, 1 second. Excuse me. Can we wait like 5 minutes to do that? Thank you. I'll let you.
Boss man.
What were they doing? Sweeping?
Yeah, no, they're laying down something. I didn't realize they were doing it in this room. Anyways,
so landfill and ugly food going in.
Yes. Yeah. So we kind of fleshed out that idea. It's like, well, we can definitely make that work. And then on the back end, donating to No Kid Hungry for every case that we sell. So you kind of have a holistic approach to it, where eliminating food waste on the front side, and then on the back side, we are donating to something that it's kind of hard to believe that we can have so much food in this country and still so many people suffer from food insecurity. And then we spent about probably 8 months or so actually developing the flavors. We sent it out to a few people, like, hey, what kind of flavors would you want to see? And it ended up kind of spider webbing out, and got probably 500 or 600 respondents coming with the wildest fruit, or not, sometimes non-fruit flavor ideas you've ever heard of in your life. 70% of them like pretty disgusting. But then, narrowing it down, got to about the 12 or so that we ended up starting to actually, develop the flavors. And then we landed on the final 4, went through iteration after iteration, and all real fruit, all
Where
real
are you getting
things.
The fruit?
So basically a fruit purveyor here in Washington State that can access it. So most, depending on what fruit it is, lots of it is coming from Washington State. Some of it they get from other places also.
So is it like the fruit though that you're getting from Imperfect Foods, or are you?
So by the time we get it, it's no longer in the fruit form. It's in the juice form or concentrate, depending on how it's
okay,
on which fruit it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because if I recall, you said you're making a pog, right?
Yeah, we're making a pog. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
What?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Pog. It's a Hawaiian. Everywhere you go in Hawaii, there's pog. It's passion fruit orange guava. So it's pog. But if I remembered, I thought that was one of them, because I'm a huge seltzer person, but I was never a seltzer person in the form of Trulies and White Claws, and like I go to breweries and buy seltzers, and I've been trying to come up with my own seltzer for like 2 years, usually when I'm intoxicated most of the time. But I'm going to start a seltzer brand, because I'm like, it's the new thing. I'm too late on jumping into wine, but I could jump in on seltzer.
I do. I have turned the corner on seltzer myself. I was so resistant in the first White Claw years, and I think a lot of people in the wine industry they might still be. Can you talk us about the mechanics of making seltzer?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that it's so much reproducible. I mean, especially if you have reliable access to this fruit, where it's basically the way that we want to make it, which is the way that a lot of people do it, but especially for us, since we're using real fruit, is that we want as much of a blank slate of a alcohol base as possible. So essentially, it's taking sugar, it's taking water, and you getting it through this fermentation, and then integrating the fruit juices afterwards. Where so by not using any malts or any, you see some wine seltzers also. By not using those things, all of the flavor essentially is coming from the fruit that you're adding afterwards, which
so
is
liquor isn't added liquor. It's not like the High Noons or something that are vodka with natural fruit or whatever. But so this is all like the fermentation process of making wine.
Except for the sugar's not coming from the grapes though. But
Right,
but there's no distillation going through or anything like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Correct.
I think that helps a lot. So there you go, Bianca. You've got the tip on how you can get started today. Just get a pot in your kitchen and heat up that sugar water.
Don't
You'll be ready to go.
I'm telling you, I've been thinking about this for 2 years. I even called Sam one day and was like, so I think we should start a seltzer. He's like, really? This is where we're going today? I was like, yeah. I said, I found a place. I found found a brewery we could partner with. I said, maybe I'll just sell them my business plan.
All right. What are your flavors you're going to go with? I'm just going to totally rip these off also. So
I definitely want to do like something peach, something kiwi, and something tropical-y. I don't know. I want to do something with coconut and pineapple, and yeah.
There's been some really good coconut ones coming down here in San Diego.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't see a lot of kiwi stuff. I don't see a lot of peach. And I still haven't found a seltzer that's doing coconut. So I'm like, let's go the pineapple coconut route.
Okay. Very, very tropical.
Yeah.
Very.
I'm a tropical person. What can I say?
I can see it.
So you're partnering with No Kids Hungry. Tell me how that came about.
Yeah. So, like I said, we knew that we wanted to kind of stick on the whole food chain and food insecurity issue. And they have been just the best partner. They're very, one, it's, they are very good about actually getting those meals into the hands of kids. They're working with a lot of really cool, interesting people, and they have an effect and a kind of a footprint all over the country. So yeah, it was honestly, it was a very natural fit. And, we're, looking to, now that everybody's coming out of COVID, doing actually, a lot of, on-site events with them. And yeah, it's very exciting.
Have you met Aisha and Steph yet? That's all.
I'm letting, so today's game 6 of the final. So I decided to, let them finish up the season. And then, maybe tomorrow morning, depending on if they win or not.
The Warriors.
Hey, Aisha, Steph, if you're listening to this, contact us anytime. Oh, I believe it. Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh man, yeah, a lot of stuff going on. So exciting, so exciting to hear about all this stuff. And the seltzer is fast. I gotta say, I really need to delve a little bit deeper into the seltzer category. I do have to admit that I was a little too resistant for a little too long. I did go deep into kombucha. I like kombucha.
Yeah.
But
are you distributing them, or
Yeah.
So where could people find your seltzer currently?
So right now we're distributing in Washington and Oregon. We just released this year. But we've been kind of overwhelmed by the response that we've had in a very short amount of time. The best place looking kind of right now, your independent grocers in Washington State, the Met Markets, Tacoma Boys, Pete's, Ken Markets, a lot of bars and restaurants. In Oregon, places like Market of Choices, New Seasons, places like that. And it's out there. It's pretty
And
easy
what's
to find.
the brand name again?
So it's called 4 Good Hard Seltzer. So the number 4 and then Good Hard Seltzer. And the focus has been, the charitable and the positive effects of the brand. But that being said, I feel very strongly that it is the best tasting seltzer on the market. With my background in winemaking, I would not have been willing to risk kind of the wine reputation over hard seltzer if I didn't feel that it was really superior to most of what's out there. So if you see it, give it a try. It tastes like something. It does not taste like a just fermented carbonated water. It's got some real substance to it.
I want that tagline. Name of the wine, it tastes like something.
I know. What a low bar. It tastes like something.
You should just make t-shirts.
That's yeah.
People go, what the hell is that? You got to drink it to try it.
Yeah.
This has been a really, really interesting interview. I love it. So Andrew, as we're kind of wrapping down, I got to ask, who do you respect most right now, kind of in the industry, or any shout outs you want to give?
Gosh, so many. There's so many people doing great things, all over the world in the industry. I think it's an exciting time to be in the alcohol industry, especially on the winemaking side. A lot of people that I know that are pushing forward on the actual trying things that have never been done before in cellars, and to all of those people, shout out to you. For me personally, my biggest influence has been the people directly in my life. Like, my dad's a winemaker, Mike Januik, Scott Moeller, who's been a big influence in my winemaking career. Then to all of the partners in in South America, same thing. I think a lot of the New World winemaking regions have an advantage where it's beautiful that the old world has the tradition, but you see the same thing down in South America where people are doing really exciting things, both in vineyards and in the actual wineries. So, yeah, I guess a lot of people, everybody.
People push it. It was just to keep pushing the boundaries.
For sure.
So, Andrew, where can people find out more about your wine brands and you?
Yeah. So if you go to www.andrewjanikwines.com, it's JAN as in Nancy, UIK wines.com. And then for the seltzer, it's www.drink4good, and that's the number 4 good.com.
Oh, that's great. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
You have a great day.
Yeah, thanks. You too. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.